Ready to go. Let's go, man. Let's get this game started, bro.
Get the game started. Blow the whistle. Show the world. Let's go tonight.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into what is a strange episode. Randy can't be with us tonight, so I am just on here answering any questions that you guys have, and obviously I'm hanging out with Justin Fields. So the first thing, because I know not everyone's going to hop in the comments, but if you guys want to drop your comments, I will be responding. That's pretty much all I'm here for. I'm not going to be here very long, but I figured we'd go live again because we go live every Monday at 10:30. So everyone say hello to Justin Fields, the future MVP. But while I wait for your guys' questions, and remember, feel free to drop them in the comments right now. I'm going to talk through my tweet about Jarvis Landry. Dave, that is very kind. Thank you. I don't know. And Dave said hi to Justin. Good stuff. So if you guys didn't see, I tweeted out about Jarvis Landry yesterday. I was just kind of sitting around and I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about the Browns for a second. And Jarvis Landry might end up the wide receiver 3 on this team, guys, for the Cleveland Browns. The reality is that Jarvis Landry can only win in the spot that Odell Beckham Jr. should be in. Odell Beckham Jr. should be the quick hitting, get him open quick, get him the ball, get the ball in his hands, let him do things, let him do Odell things. He should be in that role. And the Browns have not figured that out yet. That's kind of the role that he was in New York. That's when he was super dominant. It's when he was beating dudes off slants. Since Odell came to the Cleveland Browns, he's been used as a deep threat because the Browns have never had a deep threat, right? So insert Donovan Peoples-Jones, insert Anthony Schwartz, and you have 2 guys that I believe can be that deep threat that the Browns actually need, right? So then you start to think, Dave, he did. That's what he's good at. That's why Odell is Odell. He takes slants to the house because once you get the ball in this dude's hands, it's pretty much over. It's tough to catch Odell, and of course he's coming off the ACL. I fully expect he'll be back 100%. The rumor is that he's already at 100%, so it's not going to be an issue at all. But back to my point, you insert 2 guys that can stretch the field, they can win deep. I still have my reservations about Donovan Peoples-Jones, but I think Anthony Schwartz is going to bring a different dynamic to this offense where he's going to be asked to take the top off. He's going to be asked to do what Tyreek Hill does. He might not do it efficiently. He's not probably going to be a good fantasy football player, but that's okay, right? Because then what you have is Odell working underneath rather than running nine routes. Where Jarvis comes into play here is that's the role that he's best at. Insert another variable, and it's Rashard Higgins. I'm going to stop because that is a good question. When do I think Justin Fields starts? Also for Lance and Mac Jones. Lance, I actually talked about it in the episode that is dropping tomorrow, technically tonight. The YouTube video might be up tonight. So Randy and I did record an episode for this week. It's not just going to be me. Thank God. You know, everyone loves to hear Randy. But we talked through the NFC West, and for Lance, I said week 10. And the reason I said week 10 is when I was doing my projections, I don't have the schedule pulled up in front of me right now, but I believe that was pretty much a cakewalk of a matchup. And so I know a lot of people are going to say after the bye. I think what is going to happen is they're going to start preparing Trey Lance at the bye week, and then they're going to give him a couple weeks to continue learning the offense or the game plan for a couple weeks later. I think they're going to be fairly patient. Randy and I kind of both agree that Jimmy G is probably going to win with this team. This team is very good. Jimmy G was able to do it 2 years ago, and I think that's going to continue because the 49ers defense is scary good. Once they have everyone healthy, their secondary is a little questionable now. They lost quite a few pieces, but it's not out of the question that they bring Richard Sherman back still. Obviously, he's still unsigned. So I said week 10 for Trey Lance. For Justin Fields, I have it week 3, I believe. I just think there are people that think he's going to start the second half of the season opener of week 1. I think that's a little quick. I think they will give Andy Dalton kind of a benefit of the doubt for a couple weeks. I was really bullish when Justin Fields was first drafted, and I said I think that he's going to start week 1. I would love it if he went out during the preseason and just took the job and never gave it back. I think it could happen. I mean, look at this guy. Just look at him. Oh, wrong way. Look at him. No, it could very well be week 1, but I'll give it a couple games of Dalton before Nagy says, okay, I'm going to lose my job. Mac Jones, I don't think he starts this year. I know that's kind of a hot take, but yeah, Kevin. Yeah, there had to be. Let's see, Kevin, here's the thing. When I was like doing a test, it was just my face. It was gross. And so I had to figure out something to counteract that. And what better way to do that than with Justin Fields? So, no, with Mac Jones, I think Cam Newton is going to be good. I know people laughed at me when I said that yesterday. Cam Newton was fairly good last year. And the stats will say otherwise. I understand. They didn't trust him to throw the ball. I don't think that was because of Cam. I think that was mostly because their weapons were as bad as they can be. They went out and they put guys around Cam Newton to make Cam Newton successful. He was always best with Greg Olsen. They put 2 tight ends in that room, and I think what they want to do is run a similar offense to when Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski were there. Pre-COVID Cam, 100 after COVID. I think after COVID, it was I don't know if he lost some conditioning. I don't know if they lost trust in him. PJ, Cam is not dust, dude. I'm telling you. So Cam was actually very good throwing the ball deep. Sure, his arm isn't as strong as it used to be, but that traditionally happens with quarterbacks that get banged up, right? He's not dust. His arm is probably still stronger than Mac Jones's. And so maybe his shoulder is not done, dude. It is not. I promise you. His shoulder wasn't done last year. Pre-COVID Cam, that's a good point. Pre-COVID Cam was good. Cam Newton went out and he lit up the Seattle Seahawks last year. I know that was week 2 or whatever, week 1. And then the Patriots were winning games, so they didn't have to throw the ball a ton. The Patriots are going to be winning some games this year, guys. The defense is a lot better. Why put it in the hands of a rookie quarterback that I think would make a few more mistakes than Cam Newton will? I know Cam threw a lot of picks last year. I understand that. But again, that goes back to his best receiver was Jacoby Myers. And I can make the argument that his best receiver is still Jacoby Myers because Jacoby Myers is pretty good. But I can also say Nelson Aguilar was pretty good last year. And they added him. Kendrick Bourne, I don't really care about. Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, that's a different story. Now you have a guy that can win in a variety of different ways. And then you have Hunter Henry, who is pretty much a red zone threat at this point. He might be a vertical threat. I think Jonnu is going to be used underneath a little bit more because he is a little more dynamic after the catch. I am with you. I don't think Mac Jones is going to start at least, until Cam gets hurt, right? Because you can make an argument that Cam's going to get hurt. I think it's a flawed argument. I think he'll probably get knocked out of a couple games. I think that's how I have it projected, that Mac Jones will come in 2 games, and he'll play like one full game this year. And I could be wrong, guys. I mean, I know a lot of people are saying that this is now a quarterback competition. I really don't think it is. I think Bill Belichick has made everything clear that it's still Cam. Cam is the starter. I don't think this is really a competition. I think it's going to be a learn. I don't know how much Mac Jones is learning from Cam Newton because they're such vastly different quarterbacks, but he can learn some of the mental aspects, I think. And I think that's what Bill is going to want to do with him this year. I also thought that he was the least pro ready of the quarterbacks. And so do I have some pre-draft bias to that? Maybe, but he was the 5th quarterback taken. I'm not putting stock into that. He could end up being the best one here. But what I will say is that I don't think he was a first rounder. I didn't have a first round grade on Mac Jones. There were a lot of flaws. People talk about how mechanically great he was. He was not. In order to underthrow balls 50 yards downfield, he had to put every ounce of his being behind the balls, and his mechanics were faulty in that aspect. So, I know I catch a lot of flack for saying that Cam Newton is still good. I truly believe it. I truly believe that Cam Newton is going to be a good fantasy quarterback this year too. I have him at QB 17, I believe, or 18. And so I don't know. I could be wrong. Of course, I can be wrong. I'm mostly wrong. Like, let's be real. Mac will play by week 7 and he will take over the job and never look back. Yeah, I don't think so. I hesitate to say that Mac Jones. I hope Mac Jones starts in 2022, but there's a real scenario where Cam Newton comes out. He leads them to the playoffs. He leads them to a playoff win, and they say, "Well, that's our leader." And Cam Newton, if they might believe that Cam Newton is still better than Mac Jones. Again, Mac Jones could go win the job out of camp. I don't know. That's the fun in this, though, right? I don't believe so. I'll probably be wrong. That's what happens, right? All right. Thank you guys for the comments. This is what I'm here for. I'm not really here to talk through my freaking Jarvis Landry take, but while we have a little bit of downtime, if you guys don't have any questions at the current time, this is good. I'm not a fan of Jones, but Cam just looks done. Bill Belichick drafted a quarterback in the first round. He also drafted a wide receiver in the first round a couple of years ago. His name was N'Keal Harry. He also drafted a running back in the first round a year before that, and his name was Sony Michel. I don't have faith in Bill as a general manager. I really don't. I think they went out. I don't think they had a good offseason either. I think while they did get better, they went and they overpaid a ton of people. They both played early. N'Keal Harry did not. N'Keal Harry was hurt his whole first year, and I'm pretty sure N'Keal Harry sucks. He's just bad. I hope he finds some team that's willing to give him a shot. I don't think he really deserves one. Yeah, exactly. I would argue Sony Michel is better than N'Keal Harry, and I am pretty much the Sony hater. Especially with this podcast, I'm a big Damian Harris guy. I think Sony is going to play a secondary role. I think people are too high on Ramondre Stevenson. But I do think that this offense is going to be good, and they overpaid a lot of their defenders. Matthew Judon, not worth that money, in my opinion. Everyone else that they signed, really not worth that money. Spending on 2 of the largest tight end contracts in the league, strange, especially when you spent high draft capital on 2 tight ends last year. Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi. Like, I guess what they saw out of those 2 was, these guys aren't good, but then I can further that argument that Bill Belichick is not really that good of a GM. I just think he's a much better coach, and they should have had someone kind of making decisions for him. Granted, what makes him a good coach is that he can get the most out of not great players. I would make an argument that the Patriots haven't had an actual good running back until Damian Harris this year in a long time. LeGarrette Blount, maybe. James White is, if you put him on any team that isn't led by Tom Brady, I don't think James White is really much. I think he's a good back, but he's pretty much just a guy that fell into just a great PPR situation with Tom Brady leading the pack. They should have went and got Jimmy G back from the Niners. That's true. And I don't I don't think that's out of the question at this point. I know Jimmy G's contract is a little wonky, and it'd be tough to sell it to the Patriots. I think it'd probably push them over the cap. But I also expect some more veteran casualties than normal with the Patriots, because they did go add a ton of names to an already pretty good defense. You had a lot of guys opt out last year. Of course, Patrick Chung did retire, but you've got the McCourties back. But Broncos backfield, Melvin Gordon versus Javonte. I like Melvin Gordon to still be the lead, but people hyped on Javonte. I am one of the people that are hyped for Javonte. I had Javonte as my RB1 for my entire process, and then the draft capital, he was very close with Najee. Draft capital would say Najee is my rookie RB1 at this point. However, in revamping some of the way I grade prospects, Javonte came out as my like RB2 of all time behind DeAndre Swift. Granted, it's only like a 3-year sample at this point because I didn't go back and look at all my grades from before I started writing them down, but I love Javonte, and I think Javonte is probably going to take over that backfield, I would say, in the first like 4 to 5 weeks. But taking over that backfield, I don't know that that means a whole lot. It depends on Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, I think. I don't think Melvin Gordon is trash. I really don't. I think I need to really go back and watch like a few games. I think he's an inefficient kind of guy. Yeah, he's not. MG3 ain't no slouch. That is correct. I think he's a good back, but I also think that there's a world where the Broncos do end up still trading for Aaron Rodgers. Shout out to Jeff for this thought that has been festering now. Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the Broncos. The cap casualty to make that happen would be Melvin Gordon, because then they went out, they signed Mike Boone. They still have what's his face, Royce Freeman. He's not good, but he would provide some value in PPR at that point. Got Javonte in the trade in Dynasty, makes me feel better. Yeah, I have Javonte ranked in my top 15 in Dynasty right now. The only reason is because I think there's a chance that Melvin Gordon still has quite a bit of the share. When I say takes over the backfield, I would say probably 55, 60% of snaps. The thing about running backs right now, and probably especially once we move to 18 games, is there's not going to be too many workhorse backs. You're not going to see too many Derrick Henrys anymore. It's just not feasible for these teams to run the running backs into the ground, because then what are you doing? You're pretty much saying a running back's like timetable is 4 years, maybe 5, if you draft him in the first round. And so if that's how you're valuing running backs, then those players are going to say, yeah, I'm good on that. Like I'm just going to move to wide receiver earlier, or, they're not going to want to have a 5-year career. They don't get paid. They get paid too much probably, but they still don't get paid enough to live the rest of their lives. So you're going to see a lot of committee backfields. It's going to be at an all-time high, and we're going to really find out, I think, who the really good fantasy players are in guys that can actually identify talent instead of opportunity, because opportunity is going to be seldom. Of course, this is all fairly speculative, but I do think that I think that a committee is going to be the only approach here. I would say 2 to 3 years. Take the lead in 2022 after Melvin Gordon moves on. I just think it comes a little quicker, because I think what Javonte adds is, a little bit more efficiency. And I actually think that Javonte is probably a better pass blocker right now. So I think he's probably going to start the year as the third down back. And then we could see Melvin Gordon move into that role with Javonte taking on more of the early down carries. But I would say Javonte is probably on the field a lot. Green Bay will not trade Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I would hope not. They'd be pretty stupid. Williams will have more yards and receptions than Gordon this year. He's just way better. I do have it projected that way. I have Javonte as my RB 20-ish is where I have him finishing this year. So I'm pretty high on him. I think he's a pretty good value at current ADP. I believe he's being drafted in redraft leagues, which obviously the ADP is not very accurate for redraft right now, but I think he's in the late 20s. So I'm pretty comfortable drafting him. As a Bears fan, I hope Rodgers moves on. Yep, I mean, valid, but you do have this young stud that's going to come win a couple MVPs for you. I think he scores more points than Najee. I almost got there. I really did. It was close, but I do think I've been kind of ticking Najee down. I know they just did sign another offensive lineman. I forget who it was. It was after they had someone retire though, so it wasn't great. I don't think Rodgers retires. I really don't. I think he wants to play. He's been training pretty hard. I think he's playing a long game. I do have him sitting out part of the season in my projections. I have him coming back week 4 just for fun because I do my projections in points per game, so I can do that, and it won't really hurt how I rank them. Thoughts on Jacksonville wide receivers next year, mainly Chark versus Laviska. Man, I'm one of the only Chark truthers out here at this point. Laviska has gotten the hype to another level, but here's the thing. Shout out to Jeff again for the Travis Etienne narrative that he's put out there that he's the wide receiver 1 of Jacksonville. I don't think that's far off. I think Travis Etienne is going to play a big role in the passing game, if only because it's a very college offense. That's what Trevor Lawrence is most comfortable in. And then you have his running back for the last 3 years still with him. So I think Travis Etienne gets a lot of work. Where I think that hurts someone, I think Marvin Jones is getting on the field. I think Laviska probably gets on the field. But I also think James Robinson gets on the field. I think this is a fantasy football team where I'm only really interested in DJ Chark at current ADP and maybe James Robinson, but that's a little more risky. I'd have to go like 0 running back to really feel comfortable with it. But I have Chark ahead of Viska, not by a lot, but I think a lot of the gadget plays are gone for Viska. I think he's probably the Z receiver, and I think he's going to excel in that role. But I also think that DJ Chark bulked up. I think he took Urban Meyer seriously, and I think that he's going to be the wide receiver 1. To this point, no disrespect, Najee's volume will be outrageous. Will it though? Because last year the Steelers, they passed at the upper end of the league. It was because they didn't have a running back they trusted. But that was strange because they still had James Conner for, I believe, 14 games last year. So Najee's volume can't be that high because I don't think the Steelers are as good as people think. Like, they were 11-0 last year, and everyone was calling them fraudulent. And it turned out to be true. They weren't very good after that. I think they won 1 more game, and then they lost to the Browns in the playoffs, which, as a Browns fan, that was fun. I enjoyed that. I think he's getting a lot of work. I think he's getting about 250 touches, but a lot of people are projecting Najee for like 300 to 320 touches. I can't get there. I just don't see a world, because then what are you doing with the wide receivers? What are you doing with Pat Freiermuth, who you just drafted? He's going to get on the field. I do think that the Steelers run more 12 personnel to kind of supplement their shitty offensive line. I also think that Big Ben was in the shotgun a lot last year because he can't really move to drop back anymore. I mean, he legitimately played out of the shotgun. I would love to see the snap share, because it feels like every clip I see, he's in the shotgun. Do I think Deshaun Watson plays this year? I do. And I think at this point, I kind of think it's going to be for Houston. And I know that's kind of crazy to say at this point. Here's the thing. I don't think the league can suspend him. And even if they do, I think it's only a 4-game suspension because they don't have anything on him. His deposition isn't scheduled until after the season. So I don't understand where they can come up with a suspension. I know they have their own legal team, and anyone who's involved in a case like that might be liable to be suspended. But you say, no way he goes back to Houston. I don't know that he has a choice at this point. If he wants to keep his career going and Houston says, we are not trading you, if you want to play this year, you have to play for us, I kind of think he's going to say okay at this point. All of this stuff came out after the trade request, of course, but I don't know how much leverage he has anymore. I don't think he has any leverage anymore, actually. Exempt list until case is heard. Maybe I could see that. But I also think that his agent, his lawyers are probably going to be pushing for him to play. We'll see. We will see. It's not a topic that I feel super comfortable with any take that I have on it, because he can go to Carolina. I think that's out the window. I think they really do believe in Darnold. I've got a couple guys that know some people, and Darnold outside of Stafford was like a top choice for them. So whether I believe in Darnold still, I don't know that I believe that Darnold is much of an upgrade from Teddy Bridgewater last year in that offense. Philly, I think it's Denver or bust at this point. I love Darnold this year. Yeah, I mean, I don't for fantasy football. I'm excited to watch the Carolina Panthers play. I think what they've put together is a potential dynasty. I know that sounds crazy. They are a quarterback away, and they could have drafted their quarterback. But instead, what they did is they got a premium position with J.C. Horn, and now they have a top half of the league secondary that still needs work. But it depends on where Jeremy Chin plays. But they have a pretty scary defensive line. They have, I would say, 2 stud receivers and then a couple question marks at receiver. I think Tommy Tremble is going to be good. I think the introduction of Christian McCaffrey into this offense, and I say introduction because he only played in, I believe, 3 games last year. Introducing him into this offense is going to be tough for defenses to handle. Man, wouldn't that fit? That would fit one scandal to another scandal. But I also think that Washington is also in that mold of they have the potential to be a dynasty here. They have the potential to have the best defense in the league for as long as Montez Sweat stays there opposite Chase Young. So if they're able to pay both of those guys, which Chase Young you obviously have for 4 more years, that's a scary team. They have a lot of weapons on offense now. I'm a big De'Ami Brown fan. I think that Curtis Samuel is a lot better than he's given credit for. All they need is a quarterback. I think Fitz is going to do the job this year. I think Fitz was doing a damn good job last year with Miami, and I think this offense is actually even more suitable for him. I did read recently that the football team or Ryan Fitzpatrick specifically, will be looking to push the ball downfield, and I think that's going to happen quite a bit. I think Terry McLaurin's going to take off this year. I don't remember where I have him ranked, though. All right. While there's a tad bit of a lull here, I do want to finish my point about the Browns, and then I probably will get out of here pretty soon. I could see Miami bringing in Watson. I think that's still on the table for them. I don't know that they're 100% sold on Tua, and I wouldn't be either, but I also think that Tua was given a pretty crappy situation last year, and I think he's going to be pretty good. I don't know that he's much I don't think he's going to be a superstar in the league. I think we're going to look back and say they should have drafted Justin Herbert, but my pre-draft ranking of that wouldn't indicate that. I've already admitted that I was wrong on Herbert, though. Bad eval. I'm excited to see Jordan Love play this year. I hope he gets to. So my point about the Browns, right? Rashard Higgins is going to get on the field. He's no matter what. And so then you're looking at, you have a report that Donovan Peoples-Jones could end up being the wide receiver 3 for the team. In my mind, that means that you've got a Jarvis Landry situation, because if the Browns are smart, they use Odell in the quick game. And so where Jarvis is being drafted in fantasy football is not ideal to me. I would not like that at all. So the other point I wanted to touch on, I did bring up this on my Twitter earlier. I said there's a decent part of me that thinks that the Jaguars could win the NFC South. I know how that sounds. Is OBJ coming back? Is he worth anything still? Yes. Odell is going to be good this year. And the reason I think Odell is going to be good this year is because him and Baker are already working. This is their first full off season together, which sounds crazy with how long it feels like Odell's been in Cleveland, but this is their first year getting into a returning offense too, right? So now you've got year 2 Baker, and you've got whatever year Odell's in, but year 2 of them together in the same offense, they're going to click. It's not an Odell Baker thing. It's Baker needed to mature and distribute the ball evenly, and he did without Odell, and I think he will again even when Odell's back, because he's just a better quarterback at this point, much better than he was at the beginning of last year. Chubb could win MVP. I think Baker could win MVP, which is crazy. Jags can't win with that defense. I think they got a little better. I don't think that they're top tier at all. I do think that they put together some pieces that are obviously they're going to need to add to it, but I think they had a decent amount of talent that just wasn't utilized correctly last year. Most of that team quit, and so I think if the defense can hold up, the offense, I'm coming around on the offense being a little better than what people think. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a better real life quarterback than he will fantasy. I have him somewhere around QB 20 for this year, but that's within I have him throwing over 600 times. I think they're going to be good. I think they have the weapons to compete in most games. I think they're going to be competitive in most games, at least. I think they're going to see a lot of 1 or 2 score losses, and then they're going to grow as a team together. Trevor Lawrence is a winner. Urban Meyer is a winner. And I know that QB wins aren't a thing. They're not. But quarterbacks that are good leaders typically win. And so I would have to assume that Trevor Lawrence is a damn good leader based on his college track record. Where I think they could win is not just they're the best team. I think a lot of things have to fall into place, right? So the Titans, their efficiency has to go down. I think that's entirely plausible without Arthur Smith there calling plays or scheming even. The Colts, I think they downgraded at quarterback. I really do. I don't think Carson Wentz is even as good as Phillip Rivers was last year. Could Frank Reich fix him? Absolutely. But I think there's a world in which Carson Wentz is a downgrade and the Titans aren't as efficient. Their defense did get a little better. I had a discussion earlier. Bud Dupree is good for them. Janoris Jenkins, whatever. I don't care about that at all. Caleb Farley is a big question mark. So the Titans defense could be better and then keep them, even if they have a marginal decrease in efficiency on offense, they could still compete with that defense. Wentz will have a huge bounce back, and the Colts easily win that division. I just can't see it with the Colts. The Colts got worse on defense. They didn't. They got Kwity Paye, I believe, in the first round last year. Good, great. I don't know how effective Kwity Paye is going to be in rushing the passer this year. I think he's going to be pretty good against the run. That offensive line is so good. It is, but they also have a new left tackle. I forget who the hell they signed, but they do. They lost their starting left tackle, and I think not a lot of people are putting a lot of stock into that. But it's much better. It is better than Philadelphia's. A lot of Carson Wentz's problem last year was not his offensive line, though. It was him throwing hitches in because he was not trusting his eyes. He was not trusting his receivers. And so you had a guy that made his offensive line look bad when they still weren't good for Jalen Hurts, but that's because Jalen Hurts kind of did the same thing as a passer last year. He was trusting his eyes more. He was a better passer than Carson Wentz, but you also, I think with Jalen Hurts, what you're going to see this year is that offensive line, now that they're healthy, they're going to be one of the best 15 in the league, at least they'll be middle of the pack is what I would say. Jalen Hurts is fun. Carson Wentz, he's got a lot of mechanical issues he really needs to clean up. They've always been there. He's gotten away with a lot of them because he would trust his eyes and he would take shots. And I think getting back with Frank Reich is definitely going to help that. I don't think we see a Carson Wentz that's as bad as 2020. And if we do, then we see a Colts team that's not even sniffing the playoffs. But I do think that he'll get better. He'll get better. I don't think he's going to be back to his borderline MVP year, though. His line was decimated, plus he had no weapons, way better situation. Wentz would be comeback player. I mean, it's a good hill to die on, I guess. His offensive line, though, I I wrote an article about this during the season because I would watch Carson Wentz and I would say, man, if he just got the freaking ball out to his dump off, his check downs, then he wouldn't be getting sacked. That's your hill. Yeah, like I said, that's a good one to die on. I'm on the opposite train. I don't think he's awful. He was my quarterback 1 in that class. It's just he hasn't been that in a while. But all right. I think that'll do it. I have to go edit up our episode from last night. So thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, PJ and Dave, especially for dropping and JB Cho knows I had to, yeah, of course. And so thank you guys for joining. It was a blast. We will be live with our normal episode next week. Randy I think Randy's been working like crazy. He works in sports. I work in recreation. He works in sports. So sometimes we have some scheduling conflicts. Normally we're able to work around them. This week we were not. So we'll have our normal live episode where we talk, I believe, about the AFC West. Our new episode will be on your favorite podcast app probably in a couple hours. What time is it? 11:06 at midnight, I think. So, and then the YouTube video will be up as well. So make sure you search the Cut FFB and subscribe if you have not already. Other than that, again, thank you guys for joining me. This was a fun time. I will probably do these a little more often in the season because it is pretty fun to get on here. So thank you guys. Have a good night. We will talk to you guys next week.